Hi, I hope that you are having a good day so far, and I'm glad that you're here. Now, before I get started, you're going to need two things for this. You're going to need a blank piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. Now, the paper doesn't have to be a full sheet of paper, but in about 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to write something. So, if you've got a used envelope or scratch paper, that should probably work. And I'm going to ask you to write down a couple of things. But let's begin. Now, right here inside this box, I have something that is extremely annoying. Why? Because it reminds me of something that I had one moment, but then it was gone. What's in this box is a constant reminder that I've something that's lost and I can never regain it. It reminds me of what many people throughout my life told me as I was growing up, that one day I would miss this, and they were right. And when they told me that I would miss it, I just laughed and said, yeah, right. But you know what? They were right. What I have in this box is a reminder that they were right, and I hate that they were right. And I believe what I have in this box is something that you too find annoying. It's something that you probably have in your life. It's something that you probably have in your homes, in your cars, probably even carry it around with you all the time. And every time you see it, it's a constant reminder of something that you have lost and can never regain. So what's in this box? A clock. And clocks are so annoying, right? I mean, years ago I used to have a clock kind of like this in my office, and it made an audible tick, 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 tick. I'd be sitting in my office working, and when it was all quiet, all I could hear was the tick, 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 over and over, and it drove me crazy. But you know what's even worse than just the sound of the tick, tick? It's that that sound represents something. With each tick tock, there's the passing of yet another second of my life. A second of time that I can never get back. And then I wondered, did I make the most of the last few seconds of my life? Now, my guess is that you are probably like me. Now, maybe you don't have a noisy clock, but you understand what I'm talking about. And that the older that you get, the more you understand how precious time is, don't you? Now, hopefully by now, you have gotten that piece of paper. I have my piece of paper here. And that you have something to write with, because you're going to need that right now. Now, the first thing I want you to do, and this is not an art lesson, by the way, but I want you to draw kind of an arch. Something kind of like that. Now, inside the arch, right underneath it, underneath the top, on the inside part of it here, I want you to write your first, middle, and last name. Something kind of like that. Yep, there's my middle name. Now, underneath your name, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to write the year that you were born. Okay, I'm not going to tell you exactly what year I was born. It was in the 1900s, though. Now, the next thing after that number, write a dash. Just like that. Dash. Right after that dash, you're going to write 2, 0, and then a blank. Looks something like this. Do you know what you just drew? You know what I just drew? What you just drew? Your tombstone. How does that make you feel? I know how it makes you feel because I know how it makes me feel to draw my tombstone. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought this when you're at a cemetery, but as you look around at the tombstones, they all have those dates. There is a date of birth and a date of death. And the only thing to represent their life is that little dash that separates the two dates. Have you ever thought, I wonder what their life was like? I wonder what they did for a living. I wonder how big of a family that they had. I wonder what they did for fun. I mean, bottom line, have you ever looked at that date and looked at that dash and thought, I wonder what they did with their dash? It's such a small line to represent a life, isn't it? I mean, that dash in a person's date, I mean, that dash is the same whether a person lived 10 years or 100 years. The dash is still just a dash. Maybe you have thought before, man, I wish that I had more time to do something. Now, why is that? It's because you understand that life moves fast. And when you're young, it seems like life moves slow, but as we get older, time seems to move faster. Even though we all have the same number of seconds in a minute, minutes in an hour, hours in a day, and days in a year. As we get older, we begin to look back on our lives and we look at things that we should have done and things that we should not have done. Why? Because we understand that that time cannot be regained. What we understand is what James, who was the half-brother of Jesus, what he wrote when he said, now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. I mean, he talks about a person making plans for their future, yet not even thinking about what's going to happen today. He says that time is like a mist. It appears for a while and then vanishes. And that mist that he's talking about, it really represents that dash of a person's life. Question, what are you doing with the dash in your life? How are you managing the dash of your life? Or maybe a better question would be, what should we be doing with the dash of our lives? If you're an average person, here is how some statisticians say that you will spend your life during your lifetime. They say that you will spend 26 years of your life sleeping, 7 years of your life trying to fall asleep, 13 years working at a job, 8 years and 4 months watching TV, 3 years on social media, 4.5 years eating, 1 year and 4 months exercising. Now, if you really want to scare yourself, go on your phone or your tablet and find the little tracker that most of them have these days that keeps track of how many minutes that you have been on certain apps or that you've been on social media. Now, you may think that you're not on there very much, but a minute here and a minute there really adds up over the course of a day or a week. So all of us probably realize that we do waste time on things, but what should we be spending our time on? Now, someone asked Jesus this question in Matthew chapter 22. It says this, it says, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together, and one of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. This is the passage that we call or is referred to as the Great Commandment or the Great Commandments. And the question that they're asking Jesus is, what is the most important thing that we should be doing? Where should we be devoting our time? And Jesus gave them two things. And let's look at those. The first thing Jesus told them to do was to love God. Now, how do we do that? I mean, first we have to remember that love is a verb. It's an action word. And so you can't say that you love someone without your actions backing up what you said. So let's talk about a few things that we can do to express our love and honor towards God through the use of our time. The first thing that we can do is we can spend time in worship. I mean, one of the ways that we show our worship to God is through our worship. And the word worship comes from an Old English word, worthship. And basically, when you're worshiping God, you are saying to the Lord, Lord, you are worth the time I am spending with you. So we can show our love for God through our time in worthship or worship. Now that includes the time that we may spend in church on Sundays or Wednesdays or any other time we're at church, but it also includes any time that we spend outside of those times at church. It's in our time worshiping the Lord. We can also show our love for God through our time in prayer. Now, if prayer is conversation with God, wouldn't it make sense that we should spend time being with Him and talking with Him? And how do you judge the quality of friendship in a natural friendship, an earthly friendship? We usually judge the quality or the closeness of a friendship by how much time we spend together with them, don't we? I mean, we might think about the times that we're hanging out together, the time that we may spend talking on the phone, or the time that we spend texting or messaging or FaceTiming one another. Couldn't we also say the same about our relationship with God? That if we say that we love God, then the time that we devote to being with Him in prayer should reflect that love. So how much time do you spend with God in prayer? If the amount of time that we spend with our friends on earth is a measure of our closeness, of our relationship with them, the same's true with God. If we spend little to no time with Him, does that reflect a good use of our time? I mean, Jesus said that one of the things that we should be spending our time doing was in worshiping and serving the Lord. And if you know your time with God is next to nothing, let me encourage you to carve out time in your schedule to be with Him. So Jesus said we're to love God. He also said that we are to love others. Now, this takes time and effort. And in order for us to love others, we must spend our time wisely. And so some areas we should spend our time with our friends. How much time do you spend with others, with your friends? And if you say you love your friends, how much time do you devote to them? Do you spend time hanging out with them? Or have you become too busy with your job or other things that you don't spend much time at all with them? Do you still text or message them, or have you gotten too busy? And when you need to call or visit or message to connect with your friends, you need to go ahead and do that. I mean, you may be waiting for them to reach out to you, but they may be waiting for you to reach out to them. You take the step and reach out to them. Call them or text them today. Also, we should spend time with our kids. Now, when we had kids, we had numerous people that would say things to us like this. Now, it'd be something that I told myself that, one day I am never going to say this to anyone. Yet I find myself saying the very same thing that people said to us. And they said this. They said about our kids, they said, they grow up so fast, cherish the time that you have with them. Now, if you're a parent like we are, you know that the time, it does go fast. I mean, it seems like yesterday they were just learning to crawl. It seems just yesterday they were losing their first tooth. It seems like yesterday that they were learning to drive. I mean, we are getting ready to send our youngest child off to college here in a few weeks. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, where does the time go? Time seems to go by so quickly. If you're a parent, how are you spending your time with your children? The truth is, you can never get that time back. Now, to be honest, I mean, the life of an adult is tough, isn't it? I mean, there's work, there's taking kids to games, taking care of the cars, taking care of the house, mowing the lawn. I mean, there's so many things that have to be done when you're an adult, especially when you're a parent. And maybe you're like me, you feel like that at the end of the day that you just don't have the energy to do anything with your kids. Unfortunately, even when you don't have the energy, the clock doesn't stop. It keeps right on ticking. 18 years or so pass by and then they're gone. And many times we're left with regrets and we say, man, I wish I would have just spent more time with them. I wish I would have done this. Or we say, well, here in a few weeks when I have a little more time, then I will. But the truth is, there is always going to be something to do. There's always going to be something happening at work. There's always going to be something to fix around the house. There's always going to be laundry. It never ends. But your kids, they're not always going to be 8 years old or 12 years old or a senior in high school. And since there's always going to be something to do, we have to plan to spend time with the kids. If we wait for it to happen, it's not going to happen. We have to schedule it. We have to learn to be okay with saying, you know what, I can mow tomorrow, but let's go ride bikes today. Or we can say, the lawn is always going to be there. The laundry is always going to be there. But one day, hopefully, the kids are going to move out. So spend time with your kids while you still can. Also, we should spend time with our spouse. It seems just like yesterday that I watched Lori walking down the aisle towards me. And yet, it's actually been 25 years. In fact, just this past week, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. Now, in my mind, it seems like it was just maybe 10 years ago, but it's been 25. 25? I mean, where's the time gone? Question for you. How much time, if you're married, how much time do you spend with your spouse? Now, probably for most couples, in the early years of the marriage, you probably spent some time together because it was just the two of you anyway. But then if you're like many people, after you have children, your life, your focus shifts, and it shifts from just the two of you, and it begins to revolve around the kids. Your focus seems to be on taking the kids to games, to concerts, to school, to doctor's appointments. I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, there's nothing wrong with focusing time on the kids. I mean, that is, after all, what I just talked about. However, there is a danger for many couples who begin to sacrifice the relationship for their kids. Many couples stop working on their husband-wife relationship because they're so busy focusing on everything that their kids are doing. If they're not careful, they begin to sacrifice their marriage for the kids. Now, I've heard parents say so many times, my kids are my world. My kids are my focus. My kids are my everything. As parents, I mean, we thank God for our kids. They truly are a gift from God. However, what a lot of couples forget is that one day those kids are going to move out. And then it'll just be the two of them again. And I've seen this time and time again. I've seen a couple who everyone thought they were the picture perfect marriage. After the kids left the house, then the couple divorces. And everybody just scratches their heads and is dumbfounded and can't understand how in the world did that happen. I mean, think about it. How many people do you know, maybe you probably have seen this too, how many people do you know, couples that have been married for about 20 years or so, and then they divorced? And you think, how in the world could that happen? Now, it's not for every divorce, I understand that. But in many that I have seen, it's because for 18 or so years of the couple's marriage, their lives revolved around their kids. And when the center of their lives left, there was nothing left of their marriage. They didn't realize it, but their relationship had shifted to where the only thing holding them together, the glue that was holding them together, was the kids. And for 20 years, they had neglected their relationship with each other. And when the kids moved out, they looked at each other and said, who are you? If you're married, how much time do you spend with your spouse? If you're married with kids, how much time do you spend with your spouse without your kids? Do you still go on dates? Do you still talk like you did when you dated? Do you still just hang out and have fun together? Do you still do those things, or are you waiting until sometime later in the future when things settle down, then you'll get together, then you'll do that? But the truth is, your life is probably always going to be crazy or busy with something. I mean, one day when the kids move out, they're going to get married, then they're going to have grandkids. So then you're going to be chasing after grandkids. Then you're going to be going to visit the kids and going to visit the grandkids. It's always going to be something. And if we don't work on our marriages when the kids are there, when we don't work on it when our kids are there, then our marriage will be a wreck after the kids are gone. You see, we need to plan time to spend with our spouse. Spend date nights, weekend getaways, hanging out together. And if we don't plan them, they're not going to happen. We need to spend time with our spouses. If you're married, spend time with your spouse. Get a babysitter. If you've got small kids, get a babysitter. Spend time with your spouse. Spend time now. Invest the time now. If you wait 20 years, it may be too late. So in closing tonight, where are you spending your time? When you get to the end of your life, are you going to look back on it and say, wow, look at all that I got to do? Or will you say, boy, I wish I would have, and have regrets? The truth is that at the end of your life, you're probably not going to say, you know, I wish I would have worked more. Or I wish I would have posted more memes on Facebook. Or, boy, I sure wish I would have debated politics on social media a lot more. Most people at the end of their lives usually say things like this: I wish I would have spent more time with my family. Or, I wish I would have served the Lord longer. And when you get to the end of your life, when you get to the end of your dash, what's it going to look like? I want you to look at your tombstone again that you just wrote. I want you to take a look at it. Look at those dates. Look at that dash. And we don't know, you know where the first number. You don't know right now when that last number is. What if it's 2020? The year that we're in right now. What if that is 2020? What if you only have, we've only got a few months left. More than half the year is over on here. What if you only have 4 or 5 months left? What if it's 2021? What if it's 2020? You don't know the date. We don't know when that end date is. But on that dash, what are you doing in that dash? Let the reality of that picture that you're holding in your hands, let it set in. Let the reality set in. We always think, we've got plenty of time. Just like James said, we say, what about we're going to do this tomorrow, we're going to do this next week, we're going to make all these plans and everything. But he says, what is life? It's like a mist. It's like a vapor. It's like a fog. It's like a puff of smoke. It's there for a moment and then it's gone. When you let the reality of your mortality, we don't like to think about that, but when you let the reality of your mortality sit into your heart and you consider where you're spending your time in that dash, ask yourself, what areas of your life do you need to make changes in to spend your time more wisely? You can't go back and redo. You can't get back any years that have already gone by. You can't get back any minutes or days or anything that has happened up to this point. You can only change from this moment forward in your dash. And so ask yourself that question. What changes? What areas of my life? Is it in my relationship with God? Do I need to spend more time with God? Do I need to spend more time in prayer? Or is it in relationships? Do you need to spend more time with your spouse? Do you need to spend more time with your kids? Do you need to spend more time with your friends? Where do you need to spend your time more wisely in that dash? I want to pray for you. Father, I come to you right now. I thank you, Lord, for this time that we've had together. Lord, I know that we don't like to think about it a lot. But everyone here, myself, everyone watching this, there's going to come a moment when we do take our final breath on this side of eternity. There will come a time when there will be an end date of our lives. There will be a final number on the other side of that dash. And that we only have a few years on this earth. We only have a little bit of time in that dash. So Lord, I believe that you have spoken to those that are watching this. And that as that reality of eternity and reality of mortality sets in, they realize that probably there's some things that they've done in their past that they would say, I've wasted a lot of time doing that. I've wasted a lot of time. I haven't spent much time with the Lord, or I've wasted a lot of time and haven't spent much time with my family or with my spouse or with my kids or anything. And my mind has been so focused on work and so focused on other things that really in the grand scheme of things don't really matter much. But I believe that, Lord, tonight that you have been speaking to people, and that, Lord, that you want to bring an adjustment into our schedules, into our time, and that you want us to change some things in our schedules. And so, Lord, help us to make those changes. Help us to begin changing and making the most of the time that we have here left. We can't change anything in the past. We say, Lord, forgive us for the things that we've done, that we've wasted in the past. And Lord, help us to make better use of our time in the future. Help us to spend that time focused on you and focused on others. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, as I finish up, I just want to say again, what areas, the areas that I've talked about tonight, what areas has the Lord spoken to you about changing? Because I bet there was at least one that God's been revealing to you, oh, you need to change that. You haven't been spending enough time doing this. What area or what areas has the Lord been speaking to you about? Next thing, I want you to get out your to-do list, if you have a to-do list, or get out your planner And I want you to write those things down. When are you going to do that? When are you going to make those changes? Because as I heard somebody once say, they said, what gets scheduled gets done. If you don't put it on your planner, if you don't put it on your to-do list that you're going to call somebody or you're going to text them, if you don't schedule on your calendar on your daily time, I'm going to spend this amount of time with the Lord. If you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen, because everything else will fill up the time, and you'll look back on your day and go, where did the day go? And so schedule it, because the clock is still ticking, 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 ticking. Make the most of your dash. I'll see you next time.